Welcome to this explainer, where we're diving straight into the real historical truth behind one of history's most misunderstood figures, the ninja. We're going to pull back the curtain on centuries of folklore today, and honestly, the actual reality is way more compelling than the fiction we're all used to.
So think about it for a second. When you hear the word ninja, what exactly pops into your head? I bet a lot of us immediately picture this mysterious, solitary figure cloaked in the shadows, leaping across rooftops, possessing basically magical abilities, and taking down enemies with throwing stars. It's a super pervasive image, right? But today, we're unmasking that whole caricature using actual historical records. Because the historical operatives, properly known as the Shinobi, were fundamentally different from that Hollywood myth. Instead of being these superhuman black-clad assassins constantly fighting hand-to-hand, they were essentially peasant-class militiamen. They were incredibly pragmatic. They prioritized survival and intelligence gathering over combat, and spoiler alert, they definitely were not running around in pitch-black pajamas. Let's trace where these totally unique operatives actually came from. Section 1. Origins in Iga and Koka. The Geography of Anarchy. To understand why the Shinobi even emerged in the first place, you really have to look at the geography and, honestly, the sheer anarchy of 15th century Japan. The mountainous, completely isolated topography of the Iga province and the adjacent Koka district created this perfect natural sanctuary. We're talking rugged peaks, dense forests, and really narrow valleys. It fostered a wildly lawless environment where self-reliance wasn't just some philosophy. It was literally the only way you could survive. And the crazy thing here is just how fractured this landscape actually was. Think about this. In the 15th century, the Eilga province alone was carved up into roughly 300 to 500 tiny estates. And packed inside that small area, an unbelievable 700 squabbling castles, just constantly engaging in these low-level, small-scale feuds. I mean, imagine living in a neighborhood where literally every single block is an armed fortress. And then, right next door in the Koka district, the situation was super similar, divided up among 53 autonomous clans. So the whole area was just completely decentralized and totally chaotic. There was no overarching lord keeping everyone in line. Because of this nonstop internal friction, plus the looming threat of massive warlords outside their borders, these communities had to get incredibly good at specialized combat, espionage, and guerrilla warfare just to keep order in their own backyards. Section 2. The Rebel Alliance, Iga and Koka. Now, instead of just rolling over and being conquered by those massive outside warlords, these decentralized communities did something pretty unexpected to protect themselves. By around 1500, the people of Igaya and Koka organized into these rebel confederations known as Iki. Basically, an Iki was a self-governed military league where individual villages banded together for mutual aid and defense. It operated a lot like a European medieval commune, and they actively rejected the authority of any outside military governors appointed by the shogun. What's really mind-blowing here is how surprisingly democratic this whole alliance was. Around 1560, they actually drew up a formal constitutional document to cement the pact between Iga and Koka. They governed the alliance with 10 military commissioners from Iga and 12 from Koka. And they didn't meet in some fancy grand palace either. They held strategic field meetings, literally right on the regional border, so they could jointly pool their specialized guerrilla warfare tactics against outside threats. It was a brilliant system of cooperative self-defense. But, as you might guess, they eventually caught the attention of the centralized military machine. They ended up mounting this fierce, underdog resistance against the legendary Oda Nobunaga, who was ruthlessly trying to unify central Japan at the time. It was a brutal campaign. In 1570, at the Battle of Ochakubo, the alliance took massive hits, with 780 ninja killed. They kept fighting back, though, launching these daring counterattacks using specialized archers in 1573. But ultimately, Nobunaga's sheer military might was just too much, which led to the surrender of Koka and the official dissolution of the alliance in 1574. Section 3. The Bansenshukai Manual, 17th Century Spycraft. Fortunately for us, the story doesn't end there, and their highly specialized covert knowledge wasn't lost to history. In 1676, a really remarkable text was compiled to preserve the arts of the shinobi, called the Bansenshukai. Its compiler, Fujibayashi Sabuji, gives us this amazing direct line into the mindset of a 17th century shinobi. He basically says that if you have myriad strategies but don't have ninjutsu, you won't be able to obtain the enemy's secret plans. That absolutely proves their true value on the battlefield was fundamentally about intelligence gathering, not just combat. Information was, without a doubt, their most crucial weapon. The Van Senshukai was essentially a massive 22-volume encyclopedia of spycraft, and it is incredibly comprehensive. It covers Yōnin, which are open disguise techniques, and Innin, the hidden infiltration methods. But it goes way beyond just physical skills. It dives into philosophy, leadership management, specialized equipment, and, amazingly enough, even astrology and esoteric cosmology known as Onmyodo, to figure out the most favorable times for action. To be a successful shinobi, you had to have a deep, really well-rounded grasp of human psychology, geography, and science.
Section 4. The reality of ninjutsu. Information is power. Okay, so let's talk about the true nature of invisibility. Remember those black pajamas we talked about earlier? Well, wearing all black at night actually makes your silhouette stand out against the ambient light. True invisibility meant perfectly assimilating into everyday crowds. During the day, they used completely mundane disguises, posing as ordinary farmers, merchants, or monks. And the manual specifically recommended wearing really inconspicuous colors, think brown, persimmon, and navy blue, so they could blend seamlessly into towns and villages without turning any heads. Because the absolute top priority of a ninja mission was never about defeating the enemy in some Hollywood blaze of glory. Their prime directive was a strict three-step process: infiltrate in disguise, gather intelligence, and, most importantly, survive to report back. No matter how valuable the intel was, the mission was a total failure if it didn't safely make it back to their lord. This required incredible mental focus and sheer survival instincts. They were trained to never, ever give up, doing whatever it took to stay alive. But then, their story takes a massive pivot after the warring era ends. Section 5. From Rebels to Guards. The Edo Period Shift. And this all builds to an incredible paradigm shift. During the Sengoku period, these guys were fierce guerrilla fighters, actively rejecting shogunate authority and fighting tooth and nail against centralized power. But flip over to the Edo period and we see them completely transformed into highly organized, well-paid security forces working directly for the Tokugawa shogunate. By leaning into their highly unique skill sets, the surviving shinobi secured actual government stipends. They evolved into a crucial public security and intelligence organization. Their new day-to-day duties included guarding the gates of Edo Castle. In fact, the Hanzomon Gate at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo is said to be named right after the famous ninja leader Hattori Hanzo. They also escorted the shogun outside the castle, conducted internal surveillance, and were secretly dispatched to gather intel in other regions. They literally became essential to maintaining social order in Edo. Which brings up this incredible historical irony. How on earth did history's ultimate anti-establishment rebels become the very gatekeepers of the establishment? I mean, they went from fighting the system to becoming the exact shield that protected it. And it really makes you think, if the truth about the ninjas this layered, this complex, and honestly this practical, what other pop culture myths are out there, hiding a fascinating historical reality just waiting to be explored?